mess around. Everybody doing the mess around.
Today's going to be a little bit different because in this episode I'm going to be reviewing the Faceless Fencer Synthetic Messer designed for sharp simulation with the help of my friend Ben Halbert, or as we like to call him, Sexy Ben. Just to give you an idea of what these Faceless Fencer Synthetic Messers are, it's a rubberized blade housed in a plastic sheath shaped like a messer. The idea being that when the blades come and meet, the friction simulates what happens when two sharp blades bite into one another. And now folks, Sexy Ben.
I'm too sexy for my shirt, too sexy for my shirt, so sexy it hurts.
Thanks. Really appreciate that greatly.
Yeah.
This is why you'll ever be my teacher, but not my friend.
Oh man, yeah. So how much did these cost again?
So I got them, they were £90 each. So they are on the kind of, in terms of like synthetic messers, they are on the pricier end of the scale.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the Rawlings one is more like 60, 70, something like that.
Sure.
And the Black Fence one isn't much more. So they are on the pricier end of the scale. I feel like the target market for them, or what I would, like the people I would recommend get them, and not people that want to use them for sparring, like as a, this is my synthetic method I use for sparring day in, day out. I feel almost like it's, compared to the Rawlings, like the weight is very similar. The length is obviously slightly different, but messers come in various lengths anyway.
Yeah.
But for like general, oh, I don't want to use steel, or it's a newer student that's not as experienced, so I'm using a synth, I think the Rawlings and something like a Black Fencer probably would be better suited. But I do feel like anyone that is sort of seriously, like if you're a tournament fencer, probably doesn't, if like you're learning HEMA purely for tournaments and you want to know how to fence well in a HEMA context, then it probably doesn't matter so much. But if you're doing HEMA because you are studying sword fighting and want to know what sword fighting was like, then where these are really good is the bind. I don't think, like even things I've had a bit of a play with the sharp simulators that you can get from Black Fencer, and they're very interesting, but it's different. It's still not like the same. In my limited experience, and I'm sure you've done a lot more than I have, but in my limited experience of messing around with sharps, that wasn't even intentional. I feel awful because that wasn't even planned. But you know, seeing how sharps bind either with knives or with like wall hanger swords, this seems like a more accurate representation.
Yeah, I certainly felt that. Whenever our blades connected and I just try and push through, I felt that I was either dragging your blade with mine, which meant that there was a lot more resistance and I couldn't quite get a thrust through, and in the same way that I would with a blunt sword or with a synthetic. So that was good fun. I thought that was great. And also they do, you know, they do pack a bit of a wallop as well, but because they compress, it's not, you know, it's not as bad as when you get hit by one of the Black Fencers, which has almost like no compression. So you can hit somebody with a Black Fencer, and I feel like if you're not pulling your punch, you know, you might as well be hitting them with a steel or a cricket.
Yeah, I wouldn't be comfortable using like a Black Fencer with just light kit. I would say being hit at least edge on with one of these is more akin, like it's basically the same thing hit edge on with the Rawlings, with good blade alignment on a Rawlings. I'd say it's similar. I think flat on. Now obviously the Rawlings, I mean obviously we joke about it, they're like whips if you use them flat on.
Yeah.
Whereas this has essentially no give. But yeah, I would be more comfortable being hit with one of these than I would be being hit with the Black Fencer.
I mean, that's also the problem with the thrust. I mean, messers, as far as I'm aware, aren't particularly thrusty weapons. They're more choppy weapons.
Yeah.
But obviously, there is a point, and if there's a point, you can thrust with it. But because of, this frame, when you get past a certain point, so if somebody's stepping forwards, you really shouldn't be thrusting more than that anyway, because, you stick that much of a blade into somebody, they're going to know about it. But once you get to a point where, if they're throwing themselves forward, as some people are wont to do, then they're going to sort of like connect with this frame, and
it's different to like that, which will basically bend as much as it needs to.
Yeah.
The Faceless Fencer Messer it'll bend obviously that first 4 or 5 inches, but when it gets to this, like the actual structure, it's not going to bend at all, really.
The flat, obviously the back edge is much the same. There's, that's very stiff because it is housing this kind of rubber blade. I think the construction's a great idea. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I think that it looks good, it feels good in terms of its weight and its balance, and the idea for, like as we said, blade on blade, that edge behavior. I think that's ace. I just think that if you're using it and you're really going hell for leather with it, then you might get some injuries from somebody, even if it just sort of rolls in the hand a little bit. So if you parry something, it rolls in the hand, and you go to retaliate. It happens to everybody. You give them a bit of a whack with the flat or the back edge, then that might be a bit of an issue. Also, and I mean, I'm nitpicking here because I've got to say, overall, I really like these.
Yeah, definitely.
Before we get into that, it did. I'll hold it up to the camera there. Maybe you can see it. It did break on one of the bridges, and because that's going to be a weakness, whenever you come up against something. So if I do hit the back edge of one of these, or if I fight against the Rawlings using one of these, which is, I think, what caused this, that break is going to happen in the bridges there. So yeah, I want my money back, Ben.
What, for the Messer that I've lent you for no charge?
Yeah.
I will refund your £0.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've used that Messer since that damage, whatever you want to call it, was done to it. I think it still works absolutely fine for binding and sparring, but you're right, over time, that is going to sort of become worse, expand. The blades are replaceable.
Cool.
I don't know how much the blade is just going to say, but obviously because you literally, with an Allen key, you can remove these rivets, take the blade apart, put a new blade in, rivet it back up, and you're good to go with a new one. I have no idea what the cost of those new blades is, but it does give you that
should have probably looked into that before we did this review.
Probably should have. Well, add it in the Facebook comment or whatever, YouTube description. But yeah,
that's extra work, man.
Yeah, but that's your problem, so I don't care.
No, I was hoping you'd edit this one.
Oh, okay, we'll see.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the fact that the blades are replaceable is obviously a bonus. But we haven't used these much. Like, I mean, I've done sparring with them maybe 3 or 4 occasions, obviously multiple different people each time. And I know you've obviously sparred with that one a bit as well. So that would be one concern. Maybe it's just, bad luck, because obviously this one hasn't had the same issue. And that's not broken anywhere else. Maybe it was just like a flaw in the rubber of that particular one. We were just very unlucky. But that would be one potential concern. But again, it is a nitpick. I think using one of these messers against another one of these messers, you'd be fine, because I think the rubber on, well, with exceptions, but I think the rubber on rubber would be fine, because obviously they both compress against each other. If you'd hit the edge, if I were to like parry with my back edge, my false edge, then potentially you are hitting hard plastic. Also, like, that's a synth buckler that has a hard, not sharp, but it's got a corner. I think and obviously Messer and buckler is quite a common combination, and that could certainly do the same sort of thing. So yeah, that would be I agree with you on that as a concern. I think it's nitpicking, but I definitely agree.
Yeah, it is nitpicking. I mean, like I said, overall, I think these are great. I think I think the design, it's really simplistic because it's one piece. Well, other than the nagel, which is this part here. The lighting, like I said, is really weird in my room at the moment. So the nagel, which is there, you know, that's slotted in, but other than that, it looks like this is one, or maybe, okay, you know, 2 or 3 pieces, but essentially the housing is like one piece. The cross guard isn't separate. The well, I mean, there's no pommel traditionally with a Messer anyway, but you know, rarely you get them. So it's just
That will be on the one I'm ordering.
The Regenier.
No, Landsknecht Emporium. I probably.
Oh, okay, fair enough. All right.
I'm going to them and I've put in a custom order, so they're going to go away and look at it and come back to me.
So with regards to this, do you know if they're going to make Lang Messers or Creed?
So he does a whole bunch of weapons. I've also got, and we haven't actually sparred with it, but I've got a mace.
Oh, I want to fight with those. How flexy are they?
They've got, I mean, you can see obviously all of the flanges are completely rubber.
Yeah.
It would have to be very controlled sparring, but yeah, it does make sense. I've got 2 of them, so if COVID ever ends, I'll bring them both in and hit you in the head a few times with both of them. You'll get one.
Sweet.
I'll hit you with them
like
both.
before, yeah, I was going to say, before I even start the class, I'm there in the car park, you know, like just hanging out with people, and you just come and smash me in the head with a mace. That's fine. Yeah, I think it'd be like the opening scene of Lord of the Rings, where, you know, a bunch of people just go flying. It'd be fine. That's fine. Yeah, maces. I think they do like spears or like partisan spears. I think I saw.
He's prototyping a partisan spear. They do I want to say a Dane axe, but axe terminology may be wrong. They do a sort of bearded axe. That's kind of their latest thing. And I think he's also working on a rondel. I think the rondel could be interesting, but again, like we were saying with that thrust, obviously rondels are very much a stabby weapon.
They are.
So I have to see how that goes. But then again, like even the cold steel synth rondels that most people use, you have to do those in a controlled fashion. So
yeah. Otherwise, if you make it, you know, much harder, if they make it much harder, it's going to end up like that poleaxe head you've got.
This one, haven't got it on stick yet.
Ridiculous.
It has like the least amount of flex possible.
Yeah, and it weighs like 10 pounds.
I reckon this has less flex than your steel poleaxe.
Yeah. Overall, I like these. I think they're good fun. I mean, obviously, depending on how much the replacement blades are as well, that could be a factor. £90. Yeah, it's on the higher end, but it's kind of almost a specialist thing. It's something.
Yeah, I don't think it's a sparring stint. Obviously, you use it for sparring, but I don't think that's its main focus. I think its main thing. I kind of feel like everyone should like have a go of these. I feel like every school should have at least a pair of them to be like, you know, when you're doing the bind with the Rawlings and your sword is slipping all over the place. Yeah. Try it with these and you get an idea of what it would actually be like and why these bind exercises actually are legitimate techniques. Whereas when you do it with the Rawlings or even a black fencer, it's quite easy to go like, why would I ever bind? It's pointless. It just slides all over the place.
Yeah. So what would you give this 1 to 10? 1 being your crappy custom-made Regenier swords. 10 being my amazing custom Regenier sword.
Your amazing custom Regenier?
Hey, I've got a Regenier that's custom.
Have you?
Yeah. A longsword. My Feder.
What's custom about it?
It's got a green
looks like an off the shelf. Did they pay you to take that one?
Yeah. I mean, they would now because it looks like shit. Because I actually use mine for fighting Ben.
Yeah.
For just like propping it on the wall.
Anyway, 1 to 10. 1 being rubbish, 10 being good. I would lean towards like maybe an 8. In terms of being a synth, obviously, I think there are definitely improvements to be made. I think there are some weaknesses, some flaws in them, but I'm very happy with them. And I definitely think that's something everyone should at least try and have a go with. Yeah.
So I'm going to rate this out of 1 to 10. 1 being you're getting it back, 10 being you're not getting it back. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with a 10. No, I'd
When
probably
lockdown's
go.
over, I do know where you live.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a great idea. I think like you, I think that definitely some improvements could be made to it, which they probably will over time as they get feedback.
Yeah,
and
I
everything
mean,
like.
even sort of when I first saw this and he was showing on Facebook, they've made slight revisions and slight changes to the design, like over like the past couple of months. So I'm sure it's something that will continue to evolve.
Yeah, which is great. I think that's great. So yeah, I'm sort of leaning towards a sort of 8 myself. I think that yeah, the one thing before I forget is I know that somebody ended up I think it was Chris maybe ended up punching the Nagel by accident when he was firing against you. It really ended up kind of hurting his finger. I know
Right.
that the Nagel on the Rawlings swords tend to have a bit more flex to them, and they're rounded.
Yeah.
Because this is squared and it's very solid, I think that sort of anybody who strikes like this could end up causing a bit of damage. But again, I'm just like, I'm looking for things to complain about now for the most
Yeah,
part.
I'd agree
And
with
there's
that.
an inherent danger in anything that we do. But I mean, potentially you could almost make the Nagel in the same way that you've made this tip, perhaps, in that it sort of sandwiches maybe like a rubber part so that it's, you know, it's not going to necessarily cause that kind of puncture damage as it comes in. But again, nitpicking. Like I said, 8 because there's always room to improve. You don't want to give people a 10 because then they just give up on their dreams.
So I think the Nagel, you're right. It's like the edges even are a bit sharper, that like they're not rounded like some other parts of the sort of hard structural plastic are. So either rounding it or, like you say, put some rubber in. I think overall, my advice would be don't punch a sword, Chris. But yeah, I agree with you. They could add some maybe like rounding of it, or like say rubber.
Yeah. So that's what you would give this, like, you know, don't punch a sword, 5 stars.
yeah, pretty much. That'll be my Yelp review.
Yeah, cool. No, other than that, yeah, I think it's good. People should go out and buy them for their school.
So
or just, you know,
actually that you can. So the people that make them, or the guy that makes them, I want to say his name is Tom, and I'm really sorry if that's wrong. But the company is called Faceless Fencer. That's what he like trades as. And you can actually, as of a couple of days ago, you can now buy them from Black Armory.
Oh, cool. Okay. So there you go. You never have to interact with Tom. You never have to talk to Tom. If Tom's his name.
He was a lovely guy. If his name was Tom, he was a lovely guy to speak to, because I had a bit of a chat to him when I ordered these.
Don't worry, he's not going to be watching
people,
this.
You can just not speak to him and just go to Black Armory.
Yeah. He's not going to be watching this. Nobody watches this. Nobody's going to be watching this.
I mean, Tom,
there'll be like 100 people watch it.
And your name's not Tom, please crack me.
Thanks for watching, guys. Show your appreciation to Sexy Ben by hitting like and subscribe.